in their country. Joining me right now is Texas Public Policy Foundation CEO Kevin Roberts. Kevin, great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. Look, I don't get this. They're breaking the law by coming to this country illegally and pushing their way in, and we're sending money to the Central Triangle countries to ask them to stop?
It makes no sense, Maria. In fact, I wish President Biden and Vice President Harris would do what you and I and I'm sure all of your viewers do, which is apply common sense to this problem. Certainly those of us in Texas know this problem firsthand. It's only going to get worse. I wish I could be more optimistic for you, but let me just sum up by saying Biden and Harris are doing the exact opposite thing they need to be doing. For example, as you mentioned, spending money on these countries.
And this ultimately is one of the reasons that Americans' taxes are going up, because taxpayers are paying for this. Kevin, you co-signed a letter to President Biden, along with several current and former border officials, with recommendations to address border security. Let's go through those recommendations. Among them, completing the border wall, cracking down on asylum claims, ending catch and release, and closing the loophole treating minors from non-bordering countries differently than those from Mexico and Canada. Kevin, these are all things that were in place when President Trump was in office. Joe Biden came in the first week and immediately overturned all of these things. And that's why we saw the surge. When you're talking about root causes, the root causes is the policies of this administration. Everybody knows that. Do you expect to hear back from the administration?
Unfortunately, no. And that's a huge problem, Maria, as you know, because this is a humanitarian crisis. We had 172,000 illegal immigrants cross the border in March alone. That number will be higher in April. It will be higher still in May. It'll be higher still in June. We're expecting perhaps as many as 2 million illegal immigrants in Texas alone by the end of the summer. You would think, given the data, the research that went into writing that letter, that Biden and Harris would put politics aside and instead focus on the reality. And they're not going to do it. I mean, I think the best example is that Vice President Harris hasn't even visited the border, even though the leader of the free world has appointed her head of the task force for border security. Yesterday, as you know, she was blaming COVID for the reason that she couldn't visit the border. That gives me very little optimism that they're going to respond. But I do believe that if we put enough pressure on them, that eventually they're going to change course, because they will have no option but to finish the border wall and really begin to address this problem.
But Kevin, why? What do you think is behind this unwillingness to face the truth? I mean, look, we've got 172,000 illegals at our border in the month of March, 100,000 in the month of February. You say these numbers are only going to get worse. There are national security issues. It's not just illegals. It's COVID. A couple of people were found. They were on the terror list. When you even put the national security issues aside, you've also got issues for the American people. They're taking people's jobs, draining the system of resources. It's obvious to anyone who looks at the situation. What is the reason behind this unwillingness to face the truth and do something about it? It can't just be that I hate Trump and I want to overturn Trump's laws, right? I mean, it's got to be bigger than that.
It is bigger than that. And look, you know, in Texas, we like to speak plainly, and it's two reasons. It's incompetence and it's politics. It's incompetence evidenced by the fact that Congress has appropriated more than $5 billion that the Biden administration has not spent on completing the border wall. We have, for example, Maria, 270,000 tons of steel wall ballards that have been manufactured that are sitting in a storage facility for which the American taxpayers are paying rent that is not being used on completing the wall. Secondly, if you think about the fact, as I mentioned, that the vice president hasn't even been to the border, it's obvious they don't recognize the scale of the problem. But let me be clear about something. This is also politics. This isn't merely about overturning what Trump has done. It's about turning Texas purple and eventually blue. Obviously, we're in the news this week about redistricting. This is a related issue because what the left is trying to do is flip Texas so that they can maintain their stranglehold on power in this country. It is crucial. I would even argue that it's existential that this country lead the way in the rule of law and securing its southern border, because otherwise all of